Hi, and welcome to the SuccessPaTh show, where Christian business owners share their tips for success to show you how to succeed more effectively with your kingdom goals. I'm your host, Violet Dietrich, and I am uber excited about my guest today. She's a very good friend, and let me introduce you to her. Deb Barnett is founder and CEO of Discover the Olympian Within. For the past 30 plus years, she's used her personal athletic adventures and master's in sports psychology to coach, to teach, and to speak to athletes of all ages, levels of competition, and across multiple sports. Deb has the unique experience of having both competed and also coached at the international level, plus involvement in sports associations in 4 different countries and 2 different hemispheres. Deb is a sought-after speaker who uses her over a decade of experience as an elite athlete, including 2 Olympic Games and also 3 World Cup tournaments, plus her multifaceted understanding of team environments to bring practical, implementable, and time-tested information that sparks one's inner Olympian to life as Deb walks you through discovering the Olympian within. Yay, welcome, Deb.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here, Violet. Thank you for having me.
I am,
Excited.
yes, I'm so excited too. I'm so honored. And just looking at your life, looking at, how you treat my husband and me and other people, you're so humble and you're just a great example of a woman of God. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Yes. So Deb, one question that I have for you is how many medals have you won?
Whoa. Well, in terms of big tournaments, I have a bronze medal from World Cup, a silver medal, and a bronze medal from Pan Am Games. So those would be like the big ones.
Amazing. And I know, Deb, you sent me an almanac of a whole bunch of different awards and accomplishments. And, so look Deb up. She is just so accomplished, so much value, so much experience that she has that she wants to share with us today. So another question, Deb, is how did it feel to be at those Olympic Games? I can just imagine.
Obviously, I've been asked that a lot. And the first response is it was so exciting because it was. But it's also, there's parts of it that are overwhelming. There's parts of it that are sad. Like it's really in lots of ways a roller coaster. And I don't know if anyone's right now, it's July. So the Olympics 2020 are actually happening July 2021 are on right now. And so I'm watching that, and just watching the athletes and kind of re-experiencing some of that, because what we see is what's in front of the camera. And there's some of it is highs, some of it is lows. So we see tears from athletes that are personal bests and winning medals and, achieving those goals or even overachieving, going beyond what they thought. And then there's ones that aren't and they're struggling and it's hard, and you see that side of it. So one example for me, and I went to in 1998 was Seoul, Korea. That was my first Olympics. And so when you work years to get there and then you get there. The story for the Canadian team was that Ben Johnson was going to be racing Carl Lewis in the 100 meters, which is kind of the marquee event of the Olympics in lots of ways, the fastest man in the world, right? Like everyone knows generally who that is in that particular Olympic year. And what ended up happening is that in the race, Ben Johnson beat Carl Lewis. So as a Canadian, you're like, yeah, way to go. It ended up being a scandal because of drug testing, and Ben Johnson was found to have had drugs, steroids. And so then obviously all the drama that comes with that. As an athlete in Athletes Village, the village is supposed to be your home and your safe place. It's amazing how media can get into there. And here we are, you're focused on your own stuff, but there's all this other that comes at you, whether you want it to or not, things you can't control. And so there's media that got into Athletes Village. And as a Canadian, it's obvious because you're wearing Canadian gear. That's all you have to wear, right? And so, you know, they're coming up and like, yo, tell us, you know, this, and like, do you know anyone else that's doing drugs? Or, you know, and you're kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, first off, what are you doing here? How did you get in my face? You know, and so you go on a taxi ride and I don't speak Korean. You got your little book and you learn a little bit, right? And so they say something and then they find out you're Canadian. They go, oh, Ben Johnson. And you kind of like, you get associated as a Canadian now with this negative connotation. I'm proud to be Canadian, but at the same time, it's sort of hurtful. And you're kind of like, hey, I'm not Ben Johnson. My team, we haven't, you know, we've worked hard to earn our right to be here and to play. And we still have, you know, a number of games to play. Like our competition is still happening, but there's all this distraction, negative coming at you. And so it was some, you know, dealing with that alongside trying to continue to have the positive experiences that you want the event to be, right? And so, you know, again, as an Olympic athlete, it's easy for us. Oh yeah, it was awesome, and you know, everyone thinks. But the reality is that there's both sides to that. And as an athlete, and even the people winning gold medals and stuff right now, there'll be other aspects of some of it, maybe the lead up, some that still have competition, you know, they've got another event to do and have to prepare. For these ones at this particular Olympics, there's no fans in the stands, and parents and support people that would normally be there to cheer you on aren't there. While it's for those that are struggling with some things, that's going to make it harder. For those that are winning, and even though it's again very positive, there's going to be a bit of grieving because it's not happening the same way as it's happened in the past, and the mental images that you create prior to, in terms of, you know, how you're going to be when you get on the podium, because every athlete has that dream of what that's going to be like, or that's sort of what allows you to do the hard grunt training that you have to do the years leading up to getting there. And so there's, you know, there's going to be that little bit that's a bit different, and some they see that their parents aren't there, or their good support people aren't there, and how they're now looking to the coaches that are there. Like when you look at them and they look back to the stands, there's one country, the guy was a surprise win, but he's so excited, he looks back and he's pointing at them, and they show the stand, and there's this big space, and one guy, his coach, is going like, yes, and he's so thankful for that guy. But there's going to be that part with it. Oh, it would have been so nice to have. And it's like when we think of, you know, people who've lost, like I lost my mom early. So then when I had a baby, it was very exciting and really good. But there was this part of me that grieved not being able to have my mom there.
Wow, yeah.
You know? And so for people, when you ask someone, how, you know, how was it going to the Olympics? They're going to come back, or most are going to come back, it was really exciting. Because they know that's what you want to hear. And so some of it is that's what you do want to hear. And it's, again, when we talk about conversations, you know, I've had this discussion before with conversations, is that we need to be able to have them. And it's, am I giving you the answer you want to hear? And is it the truth? And the truth would be, yes, is exciting. But then it's, how close are we? Are we going to continue this conversation? So I can also tell you the other part of it that's just as real and just as important, because part of living that Olympic dream is getting through those moments that are hard. That everybody has them. And so how is it that we move on for that? And if I think about my life as an Olympian, I got that dream in 1976 when I'm like 13 years old, right? Sitting in front of the TV, watching the Olympics. Canada's hosting, so it's on TV. I don't know anybody in it, but and my idea of sport at that point is really small, because I've grown up in small town Canada. We've moved around a fair bit, and the community in lots of ways rallies around its sports teams, but there's not this worldly notion of what sport could be. And all of a sudden I'm watching the Olympics on TV going, oh, there's these countries I didn't even know were countries. There's sports I didn't even know were sports.
Yeah.
And I'm watching these athletes compete at these amazing levels. But they're you see this camaraderie as well. And so for me, I was a good athlete. Like I was obviously very gifted and talented physically, but mentally and emotionally and spiritually, very naive and very weak and bad.
So
like
Deb,
I needed to.
yeah, earlier we were talking exactly about what you were saying, you're talking about, and what you're describing, that roller coaster, it reminds me of entrepreneurship, because you have those highs, and then, you know, people are on social media and showing their best, but what about behind the scenes? Like, what is going on behind the scenes? And one thing that was pointed out to me is that some entrepreneurs, they actually go through depression, like severe depression, and maybe some athletes, you know, in the Olympics do so as well. And you were also talking about that immense pressure that they have, and that's the same with entrepreneurship. I know that you specifically, you want to help young female athletes, but I know that a lot of the experiences that you've had can help also entrepreneurs. You know, entrepreneurs also, I would say, let me know if I'm right or wrong, but have an Olympian within.
Oh, you're totally on target. And every person, I mean, entrepreneurs, whatever field you're in, and that's part of the belief behind Discover the Olympian Within, is that everyone has an inner Olympian. And we want to get to the truth of who you are, because every person has value just the way they are. We want to have goals to even go further and fulfill your potential and help you discover what your purpose is to kind of get there. But yeah, everyone has that in them and is trainable. And an entrepreneur goes through this is exactly, and I mean, lots of times entrepreneur in the beginning, you're your whole team.
Yes,
all the pressure,
it's all on you.
And you've got this, well, and I'm in this boat right now as I try to pivot what I do to being an online, right? Is that you have your strength. So you bring your strength to your entrepreneurship, whatever that is, right? But now all of a sudden you have to learn about funnels and lead magnets and these like things that are not part of your strength likely, but you need them to help your business to grow and to be able to reach the people that you want to reach. And that means learning new stuff, and it's stuff that doesn't come natural for you. And so it's not easy. It might be as simple steps, but it doesn't mean it's easy. And it's how do we get the mindset, whether you're entrepreneur or an athlete, and it's so similar, there's transfer, is how do we get the mindset so that we have the mental intelligence and the emotional intelligence, and as you and I know, the spiritual intelligence to help us do the things we need to do, right? Because if we don't get those buckets, the physical aspects of what we bring to it, we don't get to get them to our full potential. You don't reach the podium, we talk about in sport, or you don't get the championship. And it's about getting so that we have that whole package. And for me, with the spiritual side of it, because you're looking at kingdom entrepreneurship things, right, is that we're being told truths, or what are perceived as truths by the culture, that aren't really truths.
Yeah.
Right. And if we can get people, and partly why I'm focusing on young athletes, because I look at me as a young athlete and go, what a mess I was in with that mental, emotional, spiritual package. That if I hadn't had that trained and I hadn't had mentors speak into me about, you know what, when you lose, you don't need to go get all mad and off your rocker and start blaming other people or blaming equipment or blaming, like, you know, kiddo, you got some, you're definitely talented, gifted, but you got to grow this part. And if I wouldn't have had that growth to become a more rounded person, and Harold Minden was our sports psychologist, and the thing he got through to us, and that I'd want to get through to every entrepreneur, every athlete, is that you're good enough without the medal. So before you go there, you're already a gold medalist.
Wow.
Whether you win or
Powerful.
lose, by the character you're developing and by the ways that you behave. Okay, because it's your thoughts and your emotions that are going to dictate your behaviors, right? And so if
Right.
you're a gold medalist already, then the competition is kind of insignificant. The next game you play is the most important game of your life. That's what you feel like as the athlete, right? An entrepreneur. The next thing you do for your business is the most important thing. If I don't get that sorted, the whole business falls apart. And there's a truth to that it is the most important thing. But on the other hand, it's just another game. It's just another step in the process. And the thing is that if we fall flat on our face, our value has not changed. With God, we know, if we have God, Jesus in us, we know that we're still that same, we still have the same value. Our value didn't change. Now, the behavior, the thing we did, maybe didn't get the result we wanted. But if we pick ourselves back up, get back on the track and keep going, we'll get there.
Yes,
right? And
I love
the
that.
other thing that athletes don't realize, I didn't realize while I was in it, is all of a sudden I'm faced with retirement at a very young age. And my whole
Wow.
idea of retirement had been my grandparents that are 60, 65. And all of a sudden you're faced with retirement. Some are forced into it. And that's the same with entrepreneurs. You start out with one dream and you're going down this path and it flops. And you're, in a sense, retired from that one, but you're 25. So it's like, you can't give up. There's too much for you to still do in the world.
Right.
And you and I both know God has a purpose for you that needs to be developed, that needs to get so that you reach your podium finish, because the rest of the world needs you. You're going to be somebody's hand up. You're going to be helping somebody. They need your skills. And as an athlete, once I retired, I realized all this growth was great. And I was fortunate. I really did live out my dream, but then I didn't stop living. Okay. I got married. I've had kids. I've coached, I don't know how many hundreds of athletes from 3 years old up to 82, like this gamut of stuff. And it's like, all those things I did leading up to an athlete, I didn't all of a sudden leave them behind and have to develop a new skill set. I've been able to continue to develop this mess, mental, emotional, spiritual skills bucket, right? This stuff.
So that's your program, right?
Yeah. And continue to give, now pass that on to other people.
Can you say that again? It's the mental, emotional,
spiritual skills. So MESS, mental, emotional, spiritual skills. And the formula I have is A plus B equals C, where A is your personal development and self-awareness, because if I don't know where I'm starting, I can try to train my mess, but I have no purpose as to where it goes and it ends up getting off track. B is the mess, mental, emotional, spiritual skills. We develop those to go along with whatever other package you're doing physically. Equals C, which is the dream, your purpose. What's your passion, right? So we need to know where you're starting, which is A, right? And we want to know ourselves, not in a selfish way, in a truthful way, because the better we can coach ourselves or know ourselves and train ourselves, the better we are with the people around us and better able to help them as well. Then as we train our mental, emotional, spiritual package, we lead ourselves better, which lets us lead those around us better.
I love how you make it about others. And I think that's a huge thing. It helps people not only get rid of anxiety, but I know in some cases, as for me, like, why am I doing this show? If I was just doing it for myself, I would be like, no motivation. But then when I think of who am I impacting on the other side? And that's why it's something that you said earlier today, Deb, is that, you were saying that all your experiences, you help others. So now the audience, there's a viewer out there that needs what Deb is saying. So I appreciate so much that you're here. And something else that I wanted to point out, because I know we were talking earlier a few weeks ago before the episode, is that you like playfulness. What role does playfulness play into your success?
You hear stories of people that are on their deathbed, right? And what's the big regret, right? And it's not about how I'm going to leave all this money behind and, you know, and stuff that I didn't finish off at work. It's about family, and it's about that they wish they'd had more fun, that they'd taken time to kind of enjoy the process. And part of it is that, you know, we're on earth not to have a terrible time as we go through doing what we're doing. And if you look at the purpose, it's what fuels your purpose. There's a passion, and there's an enjoyment and joy and fulfillment, right? And so there's this hole that we have in us that can only be filled by God, right? By our spirituality. And if we try to fill it with other stuff, we don't ever quite get to our fulfillment, right? And so and part of that is that it's meant to have joy component to it. Now, part of that joy comes in the struggle. Because if you think about things that you do that are super easy, they're not usually very fulfilling. Like it's okay, and you kind of go, yeah, we did that, and it was like whatever, like whatever it is, a hike, something, and you think, oh, and then you kind of get there, and it was like, oh, that was easy. But when it's been a little bit of a push, a little bit of a struggle, there's this other sense of accomplishment, and you kind of go, you know, I had to work for that, but man, do I feel good. Right? And we forget, and I think we've told this generation, like, because even my sons, I think, well, you know, they show up for a sport and they all get a participation medal. And my one son is very sporty and athletic, and so he was like, it was still kind of a whatever, because for him the challenge was bigger. Well, everyone's getting one of them. My other son, who's just kind of there to be around his friends and stuff, like, oh yeah, but everybody's getting one, Mom. Because I said, way to go, good, and go. That doesn't mean anything. Like they know, and yet we're trying to tell them, oh, you know, you can do anything you want in life. Just want it, you know, just believe that you can. And we haven't told them the hard work that needs to go into it, and that it's part of that journey that's going to make it what you want it to be, that gives you the joy in it and the ecstasy kind of, or that, yes, I've done it, right? And it's also knowing that once you get to that journey, it doesn't stop. That's just, it's all about the journey. It's not about the destination. And once you get there, you're good. You know, you now can go to the next thing, and you've learned all these skills. You've been prepared to take that next step.
Yeah, it's a lifetime of events. And speaking of obstacles and hurdles, you told me before that journaling and reflection and imagery has helped you to overcome some of that.
Well, and as much as I could say that's for me, when you look at any of the top leadership like people that are working in personal growth and training, the presidents, and, you know, dealing with all those kinds of people, that those three things are skills that they all do and use. Like the Brendan Burchards, the Tony Robbins, the, you know, all those Jenna Kutchers, all of them journal, right? And because that's how you get to know you. And the other thing you said earlier here about, you know, entrepreneurs and dealing with anxiety, and how do we, right? All the research shows that just by taking it, physically writing it into a journal, or if you're typing, if you're more inclined that way, whatever, but sort of getting it out, and if you can kind of say it at the same time, that process alone brings down the anxiety level. So say for some reason you're at an 8 or a 9 and you're just feeling like it's too much, write that nasty letter or get it out on paper. And just by doing that and crumpling it in a ball and even throwing it into the garbage, you're going to bring that down to an 8 or a 7. So maybe that's still not where you want to be, but you've gone from a 9 to a 7 just by acknowledging that I feel depressed. I feel like I'm not capable. I feel like I'm not going to hit the deadline. I'm a failure. Whatever it is you're feeling, just by acknowledging it, you reduce the anxiety. And journaling is the best way to do that. to journal, you have to reflect. Now, here's the thing. Everyone thinks you got to reflect back. You can reflect forward.
Oh, wow.
Right? Like, think about it. We don't just, you can reflect and go, huh? You can go, okay, but what about the future? Right?
Yeah.
There's kind of reflection both ways. And so it's to reflect and look at those things and pull yourself out of where you don't want to be and put yourself where you want to. What is it? If you believe, you can achieve. Right? And so part of that belief with imagery, you can create those scenarios. And right now, again, the Olympics are on. So just go watch one of the news clips of an athlete that's just won a medal. And in that conversation, as they say, I've been dreaming about this for so long. Well, dreaming is the same as imagery, right? They're the same. But athletes typically have taken that as a skill, a muscle, and trained it. And the thing is, everyone can train that muscle. Resilience is actually a muscle. Courage is a muscle. We can train those characteristics just the same as we can train strength or speed or agility. So we can still train these mental, emotional, spiritual skills the same way we train physical skills to then help us be a more rounded person. And the thing that's nice about training mental, emotional, spiritual, it doesn't take the same amount of time, because physiologically, some of the training to get chemical changes that you want in the muscles and your cells take 3 months, right? So physically, even though I may want to be a certain strength, there's a time frame that I have to go through to get it.
Right.
But with imagery and even courage training, or, you can do that like in 10 seconds. You can pick one little thing.
That.
And it's like, boom. So the time frames are different, and that's where you can get this growth that seems like, oh my God, they changed overnight. And you get that, you can get some of those kinds of benefits with the mental, emotional, spiritual skills.
And Deb, that is so encouraging, because some people might think, I don't have what it takes, but you just said you can actually, it's a skill. So I love that. And we only have a few minutes left, so I want to make sure that people know where to connect with you. And also your freebie. You have a freebie for the audience. Can you describe what it is and why should people grab this?
Okay. I put together a little video so that it helps explain it. And then I've just created a worksheet, and it's got 20 spaces on it for you to fill in. And it's a self-awareness form, because to go anywhere, we need to know where we're starting from. And so it's about, who are you? So I basically ask you to ask yourself, who am I? If I needed to know something about you, or tell me a little bit about yourself, what would be the first 20 things that come to your mind, and just write those down, right? So that's the first step. And I'm not giving any more information on that, because I want this to be truthful and as complete and as accurate as it can be. So what does Deb want me to write there? Or, well, if I put that, Mom's going to think. No one's going to see that except you and me, right? And if you don't share with me, I don't see it, but then I can't help you with the next step. But it's like, if you can be accurate with that bit, then we can look at it. And because I did this as a young university student, and every one of my comments dealt with sport, athletic stuff. And so the teacher kind of went, oh, how well-rounded of a person do you feel you are? And I'm like, oh, I'm like pretty good. And she's okay, well, let's look at this, right? So I'm not saying anymore, but you fill that out so we get a sense of where you're at.
Awesome.
And then we can start to look at where are areas we now want to consider and think about, and go, well, where are you with this and this and this? So we start to teach you the areas to be aware of, and so that you become a more complete, truthful person about who you are.
Yeah.
And then we can get at where it is you want to go. Because sometimes we say, this is where I want to go, but you're going there because Mom and Dad want you to be a doctor.
Right.
Or you're going there because you think society says, well, you should be this weight. So your dream is to lose this amount of weight because you need to be that weight. And I go, is that really the truth? So we need to discover that, to get on the path of So you're really truly going for your podium finish, the one that's for you, because the one for me is not for you, and yours is not for me. We each need to know our own one. And so it would be, yeah, so it's a video that helps explain it just a little bit, and then a worksheet to fill out. And my email is Deb Barnett at discovertheolympianwithin.com.
All right. So
My website's coming.
well, hopefully by the time this premieres, it'll already be there.
Yeah.
So we'll put all the information on how you can get that video and worksheet and turn it into Deb, so that, you know, she can help you with get your podium dreams, you know, into reality. And we'll also put, you know, all your social media handles down in the description. So thank you, Deb, for being here. And to the viewer, thank you as well. And make sure to put your best takeaways in the comments below, subscribe, and share this episode so that others can learn that they have the Olympian within, and so that Deb can help them to reach that podium dream that they have. We love you. God bless you. And we'll see you on the next episode.